No intro today. The shoes that I've got on my feet and the one that I've got back in the truck require no introduction. I've got the Sportiva Prodigio Pro on my left foot, the Norda 005, and I've got the Brooks Catamount 4 back in the truck. So I picked the 005 and the Prodigio Pro for the first round of this ABC test. I kind of feel they're gonna be the most similar out of the three. I have a sense that Catamount 4 gonna be more leaning towards runnable, maybe faster speeds, smoother terrain. We'll see how it stacks up when I have it on foot against one or both of these two shoes here. Wow, it's pretty windy today. My hair is gonna probably look crazy in this one. So first topic, sizing. I just released a Q&A this morning. I talked about sizing with the Prodigio Pro against the Tecton X3. Definitely some discrepancies between US and Euro sizing there, so check that one out. But between these two shoes, the 005 I have in a 10, Prodigio Pro here, 10.5. Both fit well. I think I have a touch extra space in the Prodigio Pro with these two sizes. Nick also told me that this pair, or at least this one shoe I have on my foot right now, I think it was maybe one of only 5 or so samples out at that time in November, out with testers that is, and it was actually handmade. So I don't know if there's gonna be any kind of differences between production model that I will end up receiving versus this kind of handmade pre-production version. I'll see. So in terms of fit and feel, the Norda 005 does feel a little bit wider. I feel like my forefoot is spreading out a little more in the toe box. Feels squared off in the front. I know that's how it looks and pretty much how it is. The Prodigio Pro is more of a taper up front at the toes, not in any type of restrictive way. If you saw my full review, I think this 4-foot toe box of the Prodigio Pro is great, especially for more technical running. I want to be more secure, maybe not have as wide of a fit, but I can feel my forefoot probably, especially coming down this descent, spreading out a bit more in the 005. Feels comfortable. Prodigio Pro, feel a little bit more like my toes are a little tighter at the very front, but no squeeziness at all. No hot spots that I would typically get if a shoe is too squeezy at my forefoot, and my toes do not feel like totally jammed up at all. It feels just right, actually. Stack on the Norda is listed at 28.5, 21.5, 7 mil drop. I did measure 34 at the heel. So that's from the top of the insole to the ground. So including insole, strobel board, outsole, lugs, everything. The La Sportiva, their spec measurement, 34.28, 6 mil drop. And I found that pretty spot on. I measured 33 actually. You know, I've been running in them for a little while. I would go with the spec. Essentially, same stack height at the heel. That's partially a reason why these two shoes do feel very similar. The Norda does have that 7 mil drop. I'd say typically you wouldn't notice a difference in a drop like that, but the Prodigio Pro 4-foot cushioning seems to be very noticeable, which I love given my foot strike pattern. I do think that 7 mil maybe feels like 7 mil, very noticeable. 6 feels like 6, possibly a little shallower than that, but again, having them kind of side by side, not a major difference between the two, but I would say it's probably that feeling of, I think, enhanced 4-foot cushion in the Prodigio that makes it feel maybe a little more balanced. I don't know, hard to say. The 005 is so light, it's hard to feel unbalanced. Ground platforms up on the screen here, a little bit extra under the midfoot with the Norda. It maintains that width pretty steadily from front to back to the heel. The Prodigio Pro tapers in just a tad under the middle of the foot and widens out a little more at the rear. I wouldn't say that feels like too much of a difference here, effectively speaking, I would say. But I do think that extra width under the arch, under the midfoot in the 005 is noticeable. More of a grounded, stable feel. Just feels like the cushion, the rebound, it helps to have a wider kind of base under the arch with such a high rebounding TPE foam. The Prodigio Pro has combo of nitrogen TPU core and a nitrogen EVA carrier. In softness, they feel very similar. I just kind of get the sense that the 005 foam feels lighter. Could potentially be splitting hairs here, but you know, after testing so many different kinds of shoes, you get like a weird sense of where the weight is coming from. In terms of cushion, they feel similar, but I guess the Norda's weight kind of feels different, and reactivity. Getting a little more response from the 005. So please keep in mind, as I go through this ABC review, if I say one shoe is good or maybe feels a little better in one particular area, please don't take it as the shoe that I have on my other foot is not good in that area, okay? A lot of this stuff kind of splitting hairs, but details that I think are interesting. People kind of want to know, especially at the price points we're dealing with. I am getting the feeling of a little bit more contouring under the arch in the Prodigio Pro. The 005 feels a little flatter under the foot, not collapsing inwards on the medial side flat, but just a touch flatter throughout. I know maybe that doesn't make sense, thinking that I said it feels like a higher drop. I was talking about that in the sense of kind of the forefoot cushioning, feeling a little bit more apparent in the La Sportiva. The 005 7 mil drop is almost imperceptible from the heel through the forefoot. Some shoes you kind of feel like your heel is jacked up a little bit, and then you get a steep drop off somewhere in the middle. So about 32 minutes of running time here. Probably should get back and get in those Catamount 4s. They just feel so good. Having a great time running in these. Time is flying by with these two shoes on my feet. So quick stop here to take a look at the shoes on foot. Yeah, I don't know if you can tell, just seems like I can spread out wider. This is wider in the Norda, just a touch. And I do think the Prodigio Pro is a quite wide and spacious forefoot. Really like this. I mean, this is probably 100% spot on for my foot. This is probably a hair wide for my foot, but it's more comfortable. I like it. I don't have a problem with that. I may be able to, if I really wanted to, tighten this up a little bit, but I really just like the feel of it. Being able to spread out, it's really good. Also like that I'm so dialed in this one without having to really squeeze it. You can see neither of these shoes, I don't have them laced super tight, and I have probably good fit. This one, throat is wider here, so I feel like that just adds to the more, I think, dialed fit. This shoe is just generally wider. There's more upper material kind of on the sides. Again, in my other video, you have those stirrups on the inside, so even though you have a little bit of extra material here, the stirrups connected to these two gillies are holding the foot kind of tighter than it would seem the upper material is. Both really excellent fits, really easy to run in. As I'm kind of wobbling around in them now, the cushioning under both of these shoes very consistent throughout. I don't feel like either of them has packed out or kind of condensed under the ball of my foot, which is something that can happen with maybe cheaper foams or, you know, let's say lesser foams. I don't feel any particular area, especially under the ball of the foot by my big toe. Sometimes I feel like that can really compress in certain shoes. Feels very even throughout. This one, it feels like I almost have like a little bit of extra cushion under the ball of my foot by the big toe in the La Sportiva, which is like ideal for me. Really, forefoot cushioning is something that bothers me at the end of long races, and this is great for that. This feels, I guess you have a 7 mil drop, so you do have, less, if you go by what I measured, that would put this at 1 mil less foam under the forefoot, but it feels like more even in this shoe. It feels like I have maybe 2 or 3 more, at least the feeling of 2 or 3 more mils of extra cushioning under the forefoot in the Prodigio Pro. So forefoot cushioning is a factor or an issue for you. That may be something to think about. So I'll talk about the outsoles a little bit on my way back to the car. Definitely, in terms of commentary and discussion, the 005 is more of a question mark. And I say that probably rings true. If you read my written review on Road Trail Run, that was probably the one issue or question mark I had about the shoe. Mainly traction, not so much durability yet. I just haven't put the mileage in. I'm probably about 70 in this pair. I had some, testing where I had one shoe on or the other, so I didn't really add everything up. Around 70. And the lugs are in good shape for 70 miles for me. I don't notice excessive wear. But getting back to traction, if you've got those Tetris kind of lugs, then I just feel like Norda sacrificed a volume of lug amount or whatever. They're just very spaced out. They've got that Tetris shape. The surface contact area of the 005 outsole, I'm not measuring it. I'm sure there's a way to do this, maybe with AI or something in a picture, but there's less surface area on the ground. So that's gonna give lesser traction, and it's gonna give lesser durability, like lesser rubber on the ground to spread out the wear. That's a factor in durability is too, not just the hardness of the rubber. They did want to hit an extreme low weight target, which they did. So if they want to come out with an extremely lightweight shoe, at certain points you have to give and take, okay? So I think you have to understand that you may not be getting the typical traction you would get or typical durability you would get out of Vibram Mega Grip. This is Mega Grip Elite. So it's softer, theoretically should grip more, but I find in dry stuff, maybe there's just not enough lugs on the ground and not enough coverage to really take advantage of that enhanced stickiness. But it is super soft, super flexible. It doesn't feel cleaty, or the outsole doesn't feel hard on the ground. It almost feels almost not there. So that's an advantage too, of course. The Prodigio Pro just has a more standard kind of chevron shape, angular lug, something you more typically see in a especially mountain-oriented trail shoe. They have very ruggedly designed trail models. This is not their first outsole. Norda's relatively new company. La Sportiva's been doing this for many, many years. So you would expect them to have a kind of outsole advantage, even in-house compared to maybe Vibram. So you will get, no doubt, enhanced durability, enhanced traction with the La Sportiva. Then again, give and take, it's 9.7 ounces, which is a great weight for this amount of shoe, by the way. The 005 is 8.5, over an ounce lighter, which is, okay, that's where it's going. That's the advantage that the Norda has. On the run, it is apparent. Like 9.7 ounces, don't get me wrong, feels great. If I'm thinking about this even 100K, 100-mile shoe, 9.7 ounces with this kind of outsole is a great, great weight. But the 005, it just feels, almost like nothing on my foot. One thing I'm picking up on as I run a little more here, the Prodigio Pro, I said the foam feels probably heavier. The 005 foam just has a kind of lighter feel. That means the La Sportiva foam is likely a bit denser, and that would give you a bit more protection. Both of these shoes don't have plates. There's a PU film in the La Sportiva, which perhaps deflects a little bit, but adds zero stiffness or rigidity. But the foam being a bit heavier, a little bit denser. You're probably gonna get more protection without a plate. So if protection is a priority, maybe you want to sacrifice the weight of the Norda and go with the denser, more protective TPU EVA of the Prodigio Pro. If you're thinking, protection doesn't bother me, my feet are good, I can handle whatever, I got Killian feet, then you might want to look at the all-out lightweight and responsiveness of the 005. So which shoe next here? I think I am gonna go with the Catamount versus La Sportiva here. They're a little closer in weight. This is the heaviest shoe out of the three. Where's my spec card? This is slightly heavier, so I think it'll be closer to the La Sportiva. I may jog a few miles at the end with the Norda versus the Catamount. Again, just to wrap up, these two shoes here, they're both great. I think the fit is a bit roomier in the 005. More space. It feels great and comfortable though, a little bit more dialed in this. I think you get also a little bit more protection with the denser TPU EVA, probably a little heavier foam. This feels so light and responsive, this one. But maybe over the course of a longer, maybe towards 100K, 100 miler, most people would probably want a little more protection and even give up, this lightweight. Looking at the outsoles here, there's just a lot more surface area with all of these lugs here versus these little T's going around here. See how much gaps you have here. Saving weight, but it's not going to be as durable because you're going to rub lesser kind of area here. And of course you can have less traction. I mean, there's less lugs, but the pattern is they're angled this way. I mean, I'm sure they've tested this in some kind of way, but La Sportiva, they've been using this lug for a while and it works. So there you go. These feel wider now that I put them on. This is a very broad fit in this shoe. US 10 here, okay, so 10, 10, 10.5, and this 10 is the most spacious of these three shoes that I've got here. I've got the space in front of the toe, similar to the La Sportiva, and probably as wide, a wider fit, especially over here, as the Norda. This Brooks, the space over here, you got a lot. So if you're bumping some of your toes, this is a good one. So let's see. All right, just first impression on foot. The Brooks feels definitely broader across the toe box, firmer for sure. It doesn't have the bounce or cushion of this Prodigio Pro, and again the 005 as well. Feels like a for sure firmer ride. This is nitrogen infused EVA here, flash foam from Brooks. Found my index card here crumpled up in my vest. The Brooks is 9.9, 282 grams, so the heaviest by a little bit. Oh, I had 9.6 on the La Sportiva. I was saying 9.7. Maybe I had that in a different measurement in my last video. So 0.3 ounces heavier on the Brooks. Not much of a difference. Of course, big difference between the 005, but most shoes are that way. That little index card, by the way, is the only notes I take with me when I do these things. I don't even bring my phone, and that's just numbers. I wouldn't even call them notes. Noticeable right away difference in fit with the Brooks. Heel feels noticeably looser. It's not like I'm completely slipping out of it, but don't feel as totally dialed and seated in the heel cup as I do with the other two shoes. The Catamount does have that big, huge ring of bolstering along the interior of the heel cup. So it's comfortable, not a problem. Just don't feel so locked in. Also up front, a little more spacious. I would say broader in the toe box than both of the other shoes. Also the upper, a little less dialed in. I've got it tensioned down pretty nice. feels okay, but the other ones feel almost glove-like. I mean, really top in class for the other two shoes. I'm able to handle these little kind of steeper, a little bit uneven sections pretty well in the Catamount 5, given that it's a firmer kind of runnable shoe. The La Sportiva, without question, easily handles that. But the Brooks, pretty good. I wouldn't say you're giving up too much in terms of stability, agility here. Just a quick early stop here. Yeah, you can see how the upper, there's a little bit of extra looseness. It's more kind of, it's good if you want a little vertical space in the toe box, but it's just not as dialed. It's a single layer all around. I don't think there's any overlays. They removed those in this version, so I guess they went more, they feel like it wasn't necessary, being that it's oriented more towards speed and distance. You can see there's a little spaciousness in here, whereas this one and the 005 really wrap the foot. I mean, I feel just like shoe is part of my foot. I feel like I'm kind of in this shoe a bit much. Again, you have this thick cushioning around here. The heel is, I'm trying to see, it moves a little, not too bad. I could perhaps do lace locking if I really wanted to, but it's really not an issue. Just compared to this one, just feels like a little bit more extra movement in here. It does feel firmer, broader, and flatter underfoot than the other shoes. I think it's wider. I'll have to check my little sheet there, but it does feel a little bit wider in the forefoot there. Just have a big base to kind of hit that scooped P-Bax plate and kind of launch off of it from there. It's tough to get a gauge on the speed of the shoe. It absolutely feels firmer. That's no question. It's not a hard and sloppy kind of firmness, but more like a firm and responsive cushion. I would say maybe a bit less ground contact time with the Brooks, or at least it's encouraging kind of a quicker ground contact time. I feel that flex. Once I kind of get through the ball of the foot, I feel like it really wants to go. Whereas the La Sportiva and the Norda really kind of lean into that cushion, really lean into that flexibility, adapting to the ground, perhaps not as straight ahead, quick off the ground as the Brooks. The Brooks again has that P-Bax plate. They changed the shape to scoop down in the forefoot. I mean, that's their intention with that shoe. I do kind of feel it. Here's a little, let's see. Yeah, the Catamount feels a bit quicker on foot there. Just that micro kind of delay in responsiveness with the Prodigio Pro. Norda, not certain. It's lighter, may help you get off the ground a little quicker. So, I mean, there's pros and cons with the setups for these three shoes, between the weight, between the plate with the Brooks, the different types of foams, different types of outsoles, of course. The Brooks has got Trail Tack Green, and I've had very high durability with my Brooks outsoles. I actually just donated my Catamount 2s, but the outsoles on those looked almost new at like, I think 300 or close to 300 miles. So the La Sportiva and the Brooks, in terms of durability, you're gonna get high mileage out of these two outsoles. The Catamount does have a less aggressive type of lug. It's kind of multi-directional. It's flatter, don't quite have that angular shape. Suited and designed for runnable terrain. Yeah, that's gonna do the job. With the same durability as the Prodigio Pro here. Kind of feeling here these Catamounts way more spacious in terms of the front of the toe box than the Prodigio Pro. I said the 005 felt a little broader, a little wider up front, and the Brooks of the three is the widest. And again, the least styled upper, although still good. I mean, really, if you're going fast and all you're worried about is kind of runnable terrain, less concern about true mountain terrain, that kind of width up front probably gonna be good. You know, you wanna be comfortable, flatter terrain. You don't have to be that dialed. Might wanna look to have that extra comfort. So let's see, I'm gonna switch up the loop a bit here. Went up that way at the end of my last run. I'm gonna head back down this way. More of a steady descent. I think that'll give me a better sense of the Catamount 4's quickness on the slight descent, although still single track, not wide open, runnable, but should be able to get going quicker here. Here I'll go up, it's kind of flat, and then get on the road. This will be a nice test. See how the Brooks feels compared to the Prodigio Pro. Oh yeah, here we go. A little dip here, it'll be fun. Whoop. So maybe the La Sportiva here may not be as detrimental on the downhill. You may like that cushioning a little bit more than the Brooks. I have no doubt in the flats that the Brooks is gonna be faster. But if you're going slight downgrade, steeper descents, you might want that cushion of the La Sportiva. The Brooks, it does have a nice heel. You don't have a kind of hard, rigid heel to land on with the Brooks. Even that one feels good, nice and wide, crashing down on the heel. I don't think you're giving up too much flexibility with the Catamount 4. Not as much as I would have expected with this new setup they've got. Certainly in mountain terrain, kind of more moderate terrain. Definitely version 2, version 3 had a lot of flex. I really like that shoe pretty much all around. But if you're sticking to kind of what I'm running in now, the Catamount 4, you're not giving up that much flexibility. It doesn't feel stiff at all compared to the Prodigio, especially at higher paces. I was trying to crank it up a little bit heading down there. It felt fine. I didn't notice stiffness at all. No problem flexing the shoe. Felt obviously very quick. No wet testing today. Check out my other video if you want to see the wet testing. Maybe I'll jump in with the Catamount 4 at a different time. So I am gonna head back up here. I do want to get a little kind of time in with the Catamount and the 005. The Catamount 4 also probably feels better, maybe quicker on the ascents here. As long as you've got good traction, I feel like this plate is flexible enough that it doesn't hinder anything. It feels kind of nice having that firmness going up, not losing as much to the midsole softness. So you may wonder, I'm kind of saying that Catamount feels faster going down, faster in the flats, no problem climbing, but I think the difference is gonna come down to that cushioning, that firmer feel. Yeah, it's faster, but it depends, I guess, on you. If you can handle that kind of flat, firm feel, for how long you could handle that. You know, if you're getting deep in a long ultra, that could kind of wear on your feet. For me, kind of wear on the balls of my feet, especially I think in a mountain race, mainly due to kind of the fit. Stability, wouldn't necessarily want to be in this one, but also the cushioning. A little bit softer with the Prodigio, of course the 005. That cushioning is gonna just feel a little more comfortable late in the race. Some do prefer that firmer feel though. So between these three shoes, if that is the case, then you would want to look at the Catamount 4. Of course, advantage in pricing too. It's the cheapest, $170. Last quick change here. I'm gonna go a quick loop with the 005 here against the Catamount. Yeah, having both of these on, kind of equal width, but more dialed with the 005 for sure. There's just more, you could kind of see that. There's more vertical space with the Brooks, so perhaps if you have a high volume foot, a high volume foot will work well with this shoe still. But if you have more of an even high volume foot, heel hold too, really, you know, even now when I could feel that this shoe just flexes just more even, you know, it's way more flexible. There's no plate, the foam is softer, so my heel feels really like completely like this is attached to my foot. The Brooks feel like Okay, it's flexing right here where that plate is, you know, and that's just by design. It's not so much flex from here to here. So then you're gonna get that little bit where the heel is kind of, you know, they do a good job with this bolstering, but it just doesn't feel like it's, you know, part of your foot as the other two shoes. Like this Norda just feels like part of my foot. Observation I mentioned in the other video with the 005, I feel that stirrup right away when I put the shoe on, right around my midfoot, especially on the inside, the medial side, but then it just dissipates and goes away. I could feel the very kind of streamlined, thin nature of the 005 upper here, especially against the Brooks. The Brooks feels, it's a single layer. It just feels kind of more like a traditional upper, a little more rigid, I know, a little more kind of beef to it. 005, the upper just feels so flexible around the foot. The Brooks feels quicker off the ground, but the 005 feels lighter, if that makes any sense. Almost once the shoe is in the air, I could feel the Norda feels so light. But on ground contact with the Catamount plate, it just feels like it reacts so quickly. I'm hitting the ground and getting off real quick. I was feeling something similar with the Prodigio Pro, but then the Prodigio Pro is also more closer in weight to the Catamount 4, so that feeling of lightness here with the 005, not exactly the same. So the Brooks has the most spacious fit, especially in the toe box of these three shoes, in these three sizes that I have, which I think are equivalent. The 005 is a hair short. Again, I'm gonna have a 10.5 on the way. So I suspect that will have kind of a similar spaciousness to this Brooks Catamount 4 that I have in US 10. Feel really dialed in the Norda here, but I notice equivalent sizing with the Cat 4. There's just more space, more volume in the Brooks. Yes, I'm just surprised by this Catamount 4. I thought it would get kind of blown away possibly based on how much I like the other shoes. Perhaps recency bias here. I haven't run in the Catamount 4 in a while, but I really am enjoying it. I do like the spacious fit. I think it works great, especially if runnable, and especially if I don't get into too much rugged terrain here. Although I do think it can handle that. Just feels nice. Quick off the ground. I like the wide platform. The platforms between these two shoes on my feet here are similar. The Brooks maintains width under the midfoot, and that was something I mentioned in comparison to perhaps some other of the higher stack super shoes. The Brooks is probably better, certainly in terms of price at $170, and also kind of better for most runners, being that it has that width under the midfoot. It's gonna give you more stability, kind of an easier to handle ride than really bouncy, high stack, plated shoes, even though this one does have a plate. I just think it's more user friendly or runner friendly than the majority of some of those high price super shoes. So a bit of a short test run there at the end between these two shoes. I've got the opposite shoes on my feet right now. I did run in this one, of course, with the Prodigio, so I have a feel for all of them. I think I ran all of them equally, that would be. There's a lot to chew on here. A lot of talk about super high priced super shoes, and I think I've got pretty much the range of the spectrum here. You've got the 005 at $325. You got the Prodigio Pro here, $195, and then at the lower range, at least for super shoes or comparable performance type super shoes, you have $170 for the Catamount 4. I talked through the differences on the run. I guess in conclusion, there's just a lot going on. I mean, the low weight of this, I mean, the Norda at $325 really brings something different to the table. It's not a super shoe that's overpriced kind of for no reason. Again, it's a small brand, but this TPE midsole is something very special. You get that high flexibility, you get that super low weight. The outsole, concerning, of course, that's a question mark, but again, I kind of zoom in here, maybe 75-ish miles in these. You know, they're not tearing off or anything. They look okay to me. I mean, I would expect, I've seen those, you know, 300-mile outsoles on the 005, and they definitely look pretty worn. I don't think mine, based on where they're at now, will be that worn out. It could also vary based on your kind of foot strike pattern. Stepping down a little at 195, you get a little bit more mountain range. Midsole's a little bit denser. Definitely, you're gonna get higher durability at a lower price with this shoe. More protective feel. The cushion is similar in feel between the two of these. Again, I feel this is denser. I feel it's gonna be more protective over the long haul. You have a PU film in here, which will help blunt something at some point, especially at later stages in the race. This is a great mountain shoe, $195. That's a great price here and not breaking the bank like $325 here. And then coming down to $170 here with the Catamount 4, I was surprised that I liked this shoe so much when I was running it against the other ones. I would have thought beforehand that I just think these two shoes are so awesome, and I hadn't run in this a while. I thought, okay, this one I'll throw in because people are asking, but maybe I won't really like it that much. But I like the wide, spacious fit. It felt quick. I think it felt quicker than these shoes. Again, the lightness of this shoe is something to feel. But in terms of that quickness on the ground, it's not as flexible, of course. I'll show you kind of, it doesn't have the same flex as the previous versions, and certainly not the same. Here we go with this one. You got this one here, and then pretty stiff. This is the only one with the plate, but it does seem to flex evenly kind of under the ball of the foot, and it just gets off the ground quick. With the plate and the firmer foam, it gets off the ground really fast. So I think this is the fastest shoe of the three. If you like that firmer feel underfoot, firmer, flatter, and perhaps the width of it will help distribute the force of the firmer nature of this foam. If you like a firmer kind of ride, if you kind of definitely think, all right, I'm going longer distance, I want something softer, I would look at these two shoes depending on your price range. But if you like the firmer ride, I don't think there's any reason to necessarily spend this kind of money when you can get the Catamount 4. If you're fine with a firmer ride, perhaps you're leaning towards maybe 50K, shorter distances, maybe up to 50 miles, spend $170. You're not really losing too much against these shoes, and perhaps depending on the terrain, especially if runnable and fast, you may be getting more speed out of this one. So that is a lot to chew on. I admit these are really three great options across the, let me put them in the right price spectrum here, across the price spectrum. If I forgot something, or if you have any additional questions or comments, I'll definitely be continuing to run in these shoes. They're just great. I love the feel of all three of them. So I will continue to run in them. Any questions and comments, let me know down below. Thank you for watching this video again. I appreciate all the support, all the comments. Have a great day there out on the trails.